way too hard. Oh, Linda, how you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you, Sam?
I'm excellent today. It's a little chilly here in Florida. I know that from my time in Wyoming and your time in Colorado, it's not chilly. It's actually a heat wave.
I was gonna, although I was texting with our friend Christian last night, and he's in Dallas, and I think Denver was warmer than Dallas yesterday.
Yeah, we're at 58 now. This time of the day, we're usually a lot warmer than that. And this morning when I got up, it was 39 degrees. Well, um, it's funny. Even the dogs, I have two little dogs, and they waited as long as they could to go out this morning. No, don't want to do that. They put their nose out the door, come back in. Well, it's really kind of funny. We, like I said, we moved down from Wyoming in 2017, and 50 degrees, and you're out,
That's a
at the heat wave
that's
in
a
winter.
beautiful day. That's a beautiful day in January in Cheyenne. You
Yeah,
betcha.
it is. It is. So we have our title is have we really forgiven and forgotten? And we had a little bit of a discussion beforehand, and from Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. That's a really good book. If you haven't read it, it's it's just a really good mindset. But I'm reading out of the updated and expanded by oh boy, what's the gentleman's name? Uh, anyway, it says here on page 176, yeah, 176, forgiveness is the scalpel that removes emotional scars. I can
That's
forgive,
such a
cannot
visual.
forget only another way of saying I will not forgive, said Henry Ward Beecher. Forgiveness ought to be like a canceled note, torn in two, burned up, so that it never can be shown against one. That's a
That's
really interesting statement on forgiveness, especially coming from a pastoral side when you tell people you need to forgive, but you know, you got to remember the hurt. And I've given that advice. And so, especially in cases of abuse and things like that, it's tough. And we were discussing beforehand my situation, and here I believe that I had forgiven the guy who abused me and all this kind of stuff, and did the burn letters, do all that kind of stuff. And then, be driving to work one day and it's like, man, I had to call that prosecutor up there, or I had to do this, or I had to do that. Then I haven't have I truly forgiven?
and it's such a hard subject because we don't always, like, when I look at things like what happened in Germany in World War II in the concentration camps.
Yep.
Should we forget that?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And that's one of those things where, if we ignore the history, then we're bound to repeat it.
Right.
And so, um, a lot of those people now have already passed away. There's a few that are still alive, but um, that's something that the world can't forget. And I that's a tough question. I don't know that you
And maybe what that is the individual. It's
yeah,
on an individual basis. You don't forget the
right.
history, but
Yeah,
you have to let go of the rage and the hurt and the bad
yeah.
feelings.
Yeah, on an individual basis, I think that, like I said, if you try to forget history, it will repeat itself. Um, on the other hand, when it comes down to the personal side of it, and I don't know what I would or could have done if I'd had to live through that. To be honest with you, I don't know. to be able to forgive the atrocities. I would have to say, knowing myself, I don't think I would be very forgiving. Definitely.
I would love to think that I had that capacity, but I honestly don't know if I would.
Yeah. So, but so he talks about um, forgiveness is not a weapon. I'll back up just a little bit. So your forgiveness should be forgotten as well as the wrong which was forgiven. Forgiveness that is remembered and dwelt upon reinfects the wound that you're attempting to cauterize. So if we're trying to um, get past the situation, get past the person who burned us, I think about the business loss that we had a few years back, and every once in a while it pops back up. On the other hand, the entity that I really had to forgive was the federal government. And so it's one of those, I still think it was wrong. On the other hand, I can't do anything about it. So I need to move on. And I don't know
And I
if there's,
think,
go ahead.
go ahead.
I don't know that there's really any one person that needs to be forgiven. And so, I mean, we did everything legally and right and everything else, and the federal government came in and shut this particular business down. We lost a fortune. So, but we've moved on from that, right? We did what we needed to do to get out of it, and went from there. The next line says, if you're too proud of your forgiveness or remember it too much, you're very apt to feel that the other person owes you something. And, you know, I know it's tough. Forgiveness is tough.
Forgiveness is so tough, but I know even when Paul was giving his talk on forgiveness, you need to forgive and let go, not for them, but for yourself.
Right.
Because more than likely, they don't even know you're not on their radar. They're not running around going, "Oh, I got him good," da 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 da, whatever.
No.
More than likely, there's not that kind of a deep personal connection.
Yeah, you're right.
And even if there is, the one suffering by you not truly forgiving and, for the sake of the verbiage, forgetting, the only person that hurts is you.
Right.
Now, I would say I don't want to forget so much that I put myself in that same position with that person again, unless it truly was inadvertent. But then again, that puts us in the place of judgment.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is such a deep
It's
subject.
a lot deeper subject than people think.
And we have all of these phrases and things that make it sound very flippant and very easy, but it really isn't.
It's not. No.
Because forgiveness is very emotional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that emotion drives our logic.
Yeah, exactly. I think of a situation that I'm mostly familiar with in our family, and happened, I think, before I was born. And there's one or two people still alive because it involved my grandfather on my dad's side, who died not long after I was born, and his wife died right after I was born. And it involved money. and the family still talks about it. Like I said, most of the people involved in the whole situation have passed.
Right.
I'm the one person uh, that I'm not sure of, because basically what happened is the family became alienated. And my cousin, in all the research and stuff like that, when she discovered not the financial side of it, um, my dad and her mom, when the brother and sister, remembered the situation, and there was still a grudge there. There was still, so there was no forgiveness. You know, um, uh,
And you have to wonder how carrying that for years and years and years, how that's affected,
yeah,
how it
yep,
affected their daily life, their relationships.
hmm
So
hmm
it's usually, I don't know if anything ever stays just between two people
no, no,
because there's talk, there's rumor, there's other people can see the interaction and maybe how it's changed. It's very difficult, and I think probably one of the most human things we can do is the best way to fully release or forgive and forget is to release it all
yeah,
to God or whatever higher power you believe in.
right,
It's not really a burden we should be carrying all the time, and that's exactly what it is. If you do not forgive and let go and forget,
mhm,
you are carrying a burden.
yeah, yeah, and so many times, and even in churches and like some of these 12-step programs and things like that, forgiveness is more of a we're recognizing that we've been harmed or we've harmed somebody or whatever, but we're willing to forgive. But here's the thing: we forgive every week. We forgive every session that we go to. I forgive this person that harmed me. Um, well, you're still thinking about it.
Right, because you haven't fully released it.
Right. And then that's a and like you said, they're probably not it's not in their mind, and you're holding on to it, and it's like a cancer. It's just it affects, if it's a relationship thing, it's going to affect every relationship that you have.
And the hardest person to forgive and forget about is yourself.
Yep.
And that's truly, I think, the one that affects us the most. Because,
Yeah.
when you think about it, we need to be able to forgive and forget, especially with people that we spend time with. And we have to, you have to interact with them all the time, whether it's somebody at work, whether it's somebody in your immediate family. And then when you look at the relationship you have with yourself, you can't get away from yourself. You never can.
No, no, you can't.
What did Yogi Berra say? Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, right,
and you
right.
take yourself with you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Everywhere you go.
and so we have, I think a lot of times the forgiving and the forgetting needs to start internally with ourselves.
Yeah.
And what are we willing, not able, but what are we willing to do? What are
And
we willing
one
to forgive and put aside so that we can move forward?
That's one of the next subheading is you can forgive if you're willing. You know,
Yeah,
um, so here's the thing: we have a tendency to condemn the person that we need to forgive. Right? They did
right.
me wrong. She did this. He did that. Boom, boom, boom. And so, but I forgive them. And then the next time you talk about that person, yeah, they did me wrong, but I have forgiven them. I hear that a lot. I hear that a
And,
lot at
but
church.
if you have to keep saying it, have you?
Have you? Exactly. Yeah. So here's his comment. We find it difficult to forgive only because we like our sense of condemnation. We are above the fray. And let's face it, if somebody hurts you, the first thing is you try to hurt them back, right? If it's a conversation or if it's an argument or whatever, you say things that you really don't mean and things like that. So maybe if we could come to the place of true forgiveness, we will be able to restore a relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Uh, uh, no one can deny that there is also a perverse sense of satisfaction in feeling sorry for yourself.
Oh God, yes. The
You know,
pity party is alive and well in many of us,
alive and well. It's alive and well.
myself included.
Yeah, yeah. And then what's your reason? Now, maybe the reason is strictly therapeutic. Okay. So in that sense, we cancel out the debt of the other person, not because we've decided to be generous or do them a favor, but because we feel we are a morally superior person.
Ooh.
That's therapeutic forgiveness, right? And so, it's like you recently paid off your house, and the mortgage is gone. There's no debt. It's all gone. Right. So the debt has been forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Bank doesn't care about it. You don't care about it. It's all you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you don't even think about a house payment now.
No, I don't. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. And there was he goes into a story here, and it's from scripture, and it talks about a whole bunch of people, clergy people, brought a woman who was caught in adultery. They didn't bring the man.
Of course not.
They brought the woman. Now this is obviously back in Jesus' time,
Yeah.
but so one of the statements is you can't forgive a person if you have not condemned them. Right. So the crux of the story is that these guys brought this lady caught in adultery, and he recognized her sin, but he did not condemn her for her sin. And the story goes that he knelt down and he was writing in the dirt with his finger. And there's a couple, it gets big theology thing. But one of the things in the book points out that maybe, just maybe, he was writing the sins that the condemners had committed. Because the statement was basically, he who hath not sinned can cast the first stone. Because that was the punishment, stoning to death.
Yeah.
And, as he finishes writing, he looks up and everybody's gone. And then he says, does no one condemn you? No. Neither do I. Go and sin no more. Where did it say I forgive you? He didn't forgive her sin, right? Because he never condemned her. So when we look at somebody and they've wronged us, they've done this to us, we talk about it, boom, boom, we're condemning them. And so there needs to be forgiveness. But he wronged me. He did this, he did that, she did this, she did that. And so the condemnation is there. Now, yes, forgiveness needs to come. And so I found this really interesting because I've heard this preached on, I don't know how many times, but I've never seen it come from that. I've always been told Jesus forgave her sin. No, he did not. So we really need to look at why we're holding on to a condemnation or how we were wronged or anything like that. And maybe we need to look at how do we need to forgive ourselves?
And I think that's where forgiveness starts, is because if
Yep.
it's really hard to forgive someone else if you don't know how to forgive yourself. And we kind of have a habit of, I know when I'm in my pity party, the world's against me, everything's about me. And guess what? There's 380 billion or however many people on the planet. It's not all about me.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes I think by keeping the hurt and the discretion or the incident alive, we are giving it way more power than it originally had.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't say that to diminish what anyone has gone through,
Right.
that they've need to feel the need to forgive someone for. But we also have to remember that we get to control how we deal with that.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to live in darkness forever and ever and ever, you've got to find a way to forgive.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not something you do by yourself.
Yeah.
There, whether it's seeking mental health support, spiritual support, for those big things, get somebody to help you.
Yeah.
Don't carry it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't. We're not meant to go through life alone.
No.
Yeah. So he says here, we beat ourselves over the head with self-condemnation, remorse and regret, self-doubt, and we end up with excessive guilt because of things that we're holding on to that we need to forgive ourselves. Remorse and regret are attempts to emotionally live in the past. I read that and I'm like, so the mistake you made yesterday is gone. Now, if you need to ask for forgiveness from somebody for yesterday, then yes, you need to do that. But excessive guilt is an attempt to make right in the past something we did wrong or thought of as wrong in the past. And so we can't do that. But if we use our emotions properly, if we use forgiveness properly and forgive ourselves properly, we can move on from it. And we won't make those same mistakes twice.
And that's where I think the forgotten part comes in, because people think you just I don't even know if I can explain that. I don't want to live in the past. I don't want to 100% forget things that I've done that have affected me adversely, or especially when I'm working with myself, because I don't want to make that same mistake again.
Yeah.
So that's where I have the hard part with the forgotten. How do you, is it you forgive and forget the hurt, the emotion? Because you don't necessarily want to keep having the same deed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a tendency, so
And I love to overthink things.
yeah, overthink things. But then what we do is all too often, too many people, when they've had a failure or have done something that failed, they say I'm a failure rather than I failed at. So I failed at XYZ is a verb. It's an action. We recognize the error, which can help lead us to future success. Okay. I'm a failure is a noun, and it does not describe what you did, but what you think the mistake did to you.
And who we think we are.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So the lack of forgiveness of ourselves and moving on, and I talked about that business that we failed at, even though it was out of our control. So I'm not a failure. I failed at that. Move on. And so, and it's not easy. I was told early on, basically, that I suck at relationships. I fail. I'm a failure at relationships. Is basically what was put in my head early on in my life. And so, what's happened? What happened over the years? Had terrible relationships. Okay, until it dawned on me where that all started, how it started, how I took it, where it came from, because it came from people that the statement came from people I trusted and loved and everything else. And how that particular failure had to be my fault. Well, when I look back, no, it wasn't. You know, and I look at my marriage now, and um, it's very strong. You know, and so anyway, um, I know I'm not a failure at relationships. I failed at some in the past, but I'm not a failure when it comes to relationships.
And
So
when
we
you think
really have
about,
to start. What's that?
yeah, I was just going to say, when you think about failure, think about, I always think of Thomas Edison. What if after the first 2 or 3 times he decided he was a failure?
Yep, yep,
We'd still be living in the dark.
yeah. We would be, right. We would be, and we can really get into this, but we want to do a book study here coming up, um, and we're gonna start here on the 28th next week. We want to do a discussion on Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why.
Yep, and we're going to do that at 5 p.m. Eastern. Does that sound right?
Yeah, we're going to start it. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we will put out a link to get into that, or we can do it here. We'll figure that part out. We're just going with what feels right this time. So
Yeah. So it's a good thing for the first of the year. We are coming to the end of the month, and a lot of folks, I know a lot of folks, I was talking to a gentleman at the chamber that they have not, there's less than 2 weeks left in the month, and they don't even have their plan for the year.
yeah,
And they got, I don't know, the holidays caught them off guard, and then all of a sudden it's, today's the 21st of January. We got 10 days left in the month. So,
and I think things have been in such upheaval for a lot of people this
yeah,
last year, and everybody's kind of gotten off track. And that's one of those things where, you need to feel the feels, but then you also need to continue to move forward. And
right.
and that's always a hard thing too. But everybody's kind of a little out of kilter right now,
Filter, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
I had a
and that's
coaching.
what I love about this book of Simon's is
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
you a starting point.
Yeah. It was interesting. I had a coaching call last night with a gentleman, and I had asked him last week, where you at? What's your word? What's your why for this year and stuff like that? And he made a career change and all this kind of stuff. And last night he said, you really caught me off guard with the why. Well, his why has changed. And so, and the reason it's changed is because he had accomplished a lot of the things that was his why for doing what he was doing. And and now it's like, okay, um, what's the next step for you? So now, okay, so he's married, which he wasn't when he initially did his why. And I said, are you going to sit down and talk to your wife about it? because you got to be on the same page. You know, she has to understand what your why is, and you need input from her about what her why is, and then how can you bring that together. And so it's really interesting where people are at right now. Like you said, there's so much going on in the world. People got behind the 8 ball, and now it's time to move forward. So join us starting next week for What's Your Why with Start With Why with Simon Sinek. And we want to have a discussion. So we'll figure out a way to open up the links so that you can either ask your questions or get in on the call.
You bet. We'll get that posted. Check both of our Facebook pages and our YouTube, and we'll get it out there for you.
Sounds good. Linda, it's been fun today.
It's been awesome. Great discussion.
Yep. So we'll see
I
y'all
think we
next
could talk
week.
on this forever.
We could. So we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for joining us here on Balancing Act. Thanks again. Live intentionally, be very blessed.
See you soon.